All across America and around the world, this is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Good day. I'm Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today here on Veterans Radio, and thanks for joining us. We've got some interesting stories for you. We always want to remind you you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. And finally, PuroClean. PuroClean is the paramedics of property damage. It provides water damage remediation, flood water removal, fire and smoke damage remediation, mold removal, biohazard cleanup. It also has a focus on veteran franchisees. You can learn more about them by going to puroclean.com. First up, we're going to hear a little bit about Folds of Honor, a national organization. You may have heard a little bit about it, but this is going to tell you about what they do and how you can help locally and nationally. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today a couple of board members of Folds of Honor Motor City chapter. This is going to be a discussion about what Folds of Honor is and does and what they're doing in the state of Michigan in particular with these board members in an upcoming event that they've got. But let me start with get some introductions here. John Pelletier is a member of the board. He served in the Air Force for, it looks like 7-8 years. John, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it, and thank you for having us on.
Oh, we're glad to. And Bill Flohr he's got the fancy title. He's the Regional Impact Officer, and we'll have him explain what all that means later. But Bill, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, I'll let either one of you take this first thing. I think most people who are listening to Veterans Radio are veterans and friends, and that probably have heard of Folds of Honor because it's a big national organization. But why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so again, thanks a lot. But so it was started right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 2007, when our founder, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, was coming back from his second tour of duty and was on a flight with, unfortunately, a fallen soldier and decided that he wanted to do something, had a small golf event up in Grand Haven called the Grand Haven Golf Club, raised a little bit of money but for the family, and then decided that to create Folds of Honor. And what Folds of Honor does is provide educational scholarships to families of wounded and fallen veterans as well as first responders. So, and then, look, about, 15 years later or so, we now have the American Dunes Golf Course up in Grand Haven, which all the proceeds and profit from that golf course go right into our scholarship program. And in this, just after this year, we have donated over 62,000 scholarships totaling over about $296 million.
Well, and Folds of Honor is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Tell me about let's do this, because I made fun of you to begin with, Bill. What is the Regional Impact Officer? Are you the guys who go around and punch people if they don't contribute?
Exactly. Yeah. So, if they don't support our mission, we go around, slashing tires.
Strong arm.
Like that. Yeah. No, so I handle the state of Michigan for the Folds of Honor, and I work closely with the Motor City chapter, as well as the Michigan chapter and American Dunes up in Grand Haven. So I'm just support for all of them. And I'm really a conduit between them and the contacts with, a lot of our corporate partners and fundraising efforts all over the state.
It's really an amazing number. If you said it, I want to slow down and say it again because it's so amazing. 62,000 scholarships.
Yes.
Over $290 million in all 50 states.
Yep.
Talk to us about the students who get these scholarships. That's a whole lot of kids.
It is an amazing amount of kids, and we continue to grow really every year. So we handed out in 2024, like just the end of this past year, 11,000 scholarships, but we still had 8,000 applicants that we could not fill. I mean, that's how much we're growing. And so these students are all, they can be the children, they can also be the spouses of a fallen or wounded vet or first responder. So it's really, there's no better way than to help a family than just to provide an educational experience. And that's exactly what we do.
And tell us a little bit maybe about this is scholarship educational support in a whole lot of directions. We're not just talking, hey, if you go to an Ivy League college, we'll help fund it, is it?
No, definitely not. No, it's trade schools. It's private education for
elementary.
Yep, all the way down. It's Michigan State. It's Lawrence Tech. It's it's really any school that the child or spouse chooses.
One of the other things that I was sort of surprised at is the makeup of the scholarship recipients, which I think is something to brag a little bit about. So can you talk about that some?
Yeah, so like you said, there's 45% of our recipients are minority based. So, we're very diverse, just like the country we live in, right? And out of every dollar, 91 cents goes into that scholarship program. So we're very high rated as far as the charity is concerned, but we're incredibly diverse. When you look at, the military, the first responders, there's not a single person that talk about, race or anything like that, but we're so diverse inside of all those units. That's exactly the way our country is, and that's exactly the way our organization is as well.
Exactly. It mirrors what the society is and what the our base is with the military.
But explain to us, why did you get involved?
Sure. As I'd mentioned to you prior to the call, I had worked at a company in Canton, and we have a gentleman who is our president, Russ Bruner, he's a great patriot, and he just felt there was a need to do something around here. There really wasn't that much presence for this type of organization. So he had rounded up a few friends and kind of was kicking around the idea, made a few calls to Folds of Honor. They had said, well, here, just have a golf outing for us, which is a very common thing. And maybe you'll raise $5,000 or such. Well, we ended up raising about $35,000 that first year. And my boss was a former Marine, and he had mentioned to Russ that I would probably be a good candidate with the number of contacts I have, as well as my military experience. So he'd asked me to join the board too. So that all started in 2017 from the very get-go. And since then, we have raised multi-millions of dollars with our board. So we've really progressed through the tough times. It's kind of tight right now. We're really struggling for sponsorships, which is one of the reasons we're really trying to hit the pavement this time of year while budgets are being created. So, in a nutshell, that's what I'd done. I'm a huge fan of the military. My dad was a loadmaster, a 24-year Air Force veteran, a retired E9. I followed in his footsteps, and here we are today, is still supporting our military men and women and first responders now.
Well, let's face it, your dad is a loadmaster. He knew how to pack the station wagon for vacations, didn't he?
You would not believe. Absolutely. Absolutely, he did.
And so John was voluntold to get involved in this organization and dove deep into it and is doing a great job. Bill, how did you get involved?
Well, John actually got me involved. So I was a baseball coach for a long time at Northville High School. We would do Armed Forces days there, where we would just, teach our players and stuff about, the sacrifices of so many that allow them to play high school baseball and be free, and started raising some pretty good money. We had a concert in downtown Northville that raised about $40,000 for homes for our troops. And John got wind of it because I was working at Staples at the time, and John was a customer. And they brought me in, started talking about Folds of Honor and what I did on the side. And John's like, "Hey, would you consider picking Folds of Honor?" And I'm like, "Sure." So we had another event downtown Northville with the Killer Flamingos, raised about another $45,000, I think, for Folds of Honor. And then all of a sudden, they were asking me to join their board. And I've always had a great passion for the military, and being in baseball, we went out to San Diego and saw how much the Padres were part of the the naval community out there, and we wanted to do that here. So we did, and it's been a huge part of my life, that's for sure.
He's a little bit humble, Jim. If you see his basement, he is a World War II aficionado. And that's kind of what one of the events he put on in Northville High School. He had displays out front of Northville High School, and it was humbling. It was very humbling. And he is a true patriot, and he does a ton for pretty much for everybody.
One of the things that has expanded over time is the families that are eligible for these scholarships. Goes beyond just military members nowadays, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. Again, in 2022, on September 11th, our CEO, Lieutenant Colonel Rooney, had made the announcement that we were going to start supporting first responders, including the police, the fire, and EMS. Just for the simple fact that they do the same type of mission, only internally in the U.S., providing that blanket of safety and support for medical situations and fire whenever called upon, 24/7, so 365. So that need was great. There's they have fallen officers. We've unfortunately seen that grow at certain times. So the support there is needed. We're trying to get that message out to many of the different units, and we've had a lot of good luck with the folks up in the Linden area. They've got the fire department very involved, and we've got a few of the honor guards here that we have at all of our events, our golf event in September, and then our gala again in March, which is kind of the repetition that we've been using each year. So yeah, they definitely need the support. There is that need, and we are here to help fulfill it.
One of the things that I guess I wanted to get across, because this interview will be heard all across the country, is talk to us, and Bill, maybe you're the best spot to do it, is Folds of Honor is a national charity, isn't it?
100%. Yes, sir. Yeah. So we're in 35 states right now. So we have 35 chapters. We've got 5 more that's should be up and running in a couple months here. So we'll be at 40. So we have multiple, obviously, in the state of Michigan. But so Lieutenant Colonel Rooney is based out of Tulsa. So that's where our national is located. But yeah, basically every state, pretty close, you should be able to find a Folds of Honor chapter.
Well, let's talk about how folks can go online and learn more about Folds of Honor and see if there's something in their state, or see if there's a way for them to be in touch. So where would they go to do that, John?
Well, we've got regional, each different Folds of Honor chapter has their own website and contact points and information regarding what their events are, as well as the National Folds of Honor webpage. So you can even the Folds of Honor is foldsofhonormotorcity.org. And they can reach out and take a look on our website, and we try to keep that updated with our events. We've got swag that we try to sell. We go to different events that support our cause, like the golf show and different car events, and just wherever we see a kind of a good fit, we try to attend those events. So mainly we are on all social medias. We've got a big presence on Facebook. We've got a presence on Instagram as well. So we can also be found just by using the search engine and going on there and looking for Folds of Honor Motor City or Folds of Honor org. And Folds of Honor National lists all of the chapter locations. So that's a good place to see if they're represented. There's one in Toledo. So if your bandwidth spreads down to Toledo, those people will know about it. The Motor City, and then again in Grand Haven or Grand Rapids. So that's 3 within this region that are available for the people to, focus their attention on and look for opportunities for scholarship applications.
Yeah. And you'll also see, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but you'll also see our logo on so many products out there. Budweiser is obviously our biggest supporter. They've donated over $23 million since we've started. So you'll see our logo every summer on Budweiser and on their trucks all over the United States. But Budweiser and pretzels, ketchup, Red Gold ketchup, and Coca-Cola. I mean, you'll see our folded flag with the Folds of Honor written right underneath it on so many products across the nation.
Yeah, I want to direct people to foldsofhonor.org, the national. There's up on the banner, there's chapters, and there's 3 in Texas, for example. There's 3 in Florida, a couple in California. So they're really spread from looks like Boston to Southern California, really all across the state. You brought it up. I want to expand on this a little bit because you can't do this kind of work without significant support. You have a lot of corporate sponsors at the national level, and again, those are listed on the national side. Who are your sponsors? Who are on the corporate side is helping Folds of Honor Motor City?
Yeah, so you're so right. We could not do this without any partner, corporate or personal private partner. But so like locally in Motor City, Lineage Logistics is a very huge partner. McDermott, Coppercraft. We're coming out with a new Folds of Honor whiskey that's I probably should have said that because I'm spilling the beans, but it's coming out this summer.
Where's your bat?
Yeah, a little advance. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in Michigan. But like Jacob Matthew Jewelers, Allied Insurance, Panasonic Automotive is huge. EOTech, Kendra Scott, Vet Tech. And then, coming on board soon is Meyer. I mean, I think people in Michigan know Meyer a little bit.
Absolutely.
As well as Spartan Nash grocery stores. You're going to see a lot of stuff in 2025 in both of those retail outlets. They're just unbelievably patriotic, but community oriented as well.
But you got to have corporate support, but you also have the individual support because that's where volunteers come from. And that's funny you say that because we don't have a ton of paid employees like John here and Russ and all of our board members. They're all volunteers. They are all volunteers. And, being in Motor City, you know how Detroit is, man. Everybody wants to give and help. And, we're looking for those motor partners, the Fords and GMs, and all those tier ones to hop on board with all of our volunteers with corporate sponsorship as well as, their veteran giving and cause marketing that they have. But so many volunteers and that's why we're so good at the Gold Star. 91 cents is our rating. It's just unbelievable.
No, the overhead. Yeah. Just minimal overhead.
Yeah.
And where I'm trying to go is you got to get the individuals out, and one way to get individuals out is their participation in a couple of your signature events. And you have a signature event coming up in March of 2025.
Yes, sir.
One of you want to tell us about it?
Our gala that we do, it's right at St. John's, which is absolutely just one of the most beautiful resorts, like in Plymouth, Michigan. It's great, and they're really great partners. But it's our red, white, and blue gala. It's March 15th, right at St. John's. We'll have probably about 350 people in there, and it's just great to learn about our mission. You'll hear stories of our recipients. There's a ton of military and veterans that attend. Rich Luderman is our MC. He's been from day one, and this will be our fifth one this year. Our fifth one so far. And Rich, all I do is I call Rich, and he's like, "Yep, I'm in," because he's an Air Force veteran himself. But he's our MC, and it's just an unbelievable patriotic night.
People are interested in attending or supporting Folds of Honor, Motor City. John, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go to our website, our Motor City website, and there is a link on there to One Cause. And One Cause is basically our platform that we use for ticket sales and merchandise, any type of financial functions that we try to we route them through that One Cause. And or you could reach out to Bill Flohr. Bill's address or email address is bflohr, FLOHR, at foldsofhonor.org. And Bill is he fields a lot of those calls, especially from some of the higher level sponsorships. But go to that location, you'll see that information on there. We try to keep it on our Facebook page as well, and it will take you right to ticket sales. It will also provide opportunities for sponsorships on there as well. So that's one of the main things that we're looking for. We generally get a decent number of individuals, but we're always pounding the pavement looking for additional sponsors. And I think that's a repetitive theme you've heard here today. For sure.
I want to thank both John Pelletier and Bill Flohr with Folds of Honor Motor City and Folds of Honor Michigan for educating us a little bit about the great work that they're doing in providing scholarships.
Well, we greatly appreciate it, and we greatly appreciate your time, Jim. This has been a fantastic opportunity for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, gentlemen. Right after some words from our sponsors, and I hope you learned something about Folds of Honor, but as we were talking, sponsorship is so important to keep these nonprofit endeavors going on, like veteransradio.org. So you're going to hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to probably bend your mind a little bit about at what age is it appropriate or not appropriate to be in military service, and what are the consequences of age in military service. Fascinating discussion.
Military veterans touch everyone's life. I'm guessing right now you're thinking of a veteran, a close friend, relative. Maybe it's you. Even the toughest of us sometimes need help, but don't know where to turn for support. You don't need special training to help a veteran in your life. Even small actions can make a world of difference. If you know a veteran in crisis, please call the Veterans Crisis Line, 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. A message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We also couldn't do this work here at Veterans Radio without the support of sponsors such as the National Vietnam Veterans of America, the local VSOs like Vietnam Veterans of America, Charles S. Kettle's chapter in Ann Arbor, VFW, Graf O'Hara Post 423 in American Legion, Presscorn Post 46 in Ann Arbor. So we want to recognize all their support over the years as well as we move into our next interview, which I say may bend your mind a little bit. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army retired Lanny Snodgrass, who more importantly, I should say, is Dr. Lanny Snodgrass, a respected psychiatrist. Lanny, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Thank you.
Well, this is a real pleasure to talk to somebody with your experience and your expertise in the field of psychiatry and your time in the Army. So let's start with this. You earned your PhD in psychology from the University of Oregon. You went on and got your MD degree. And then you went off and did residency and training and all of that, and then worked for almost 20 years, I think, with the Veterans Affairs doing psychiatry.
And with the department, well, let's see. Yeah, well, it'd be also with the Department of Defense, because I volunteered to leave the Veterans Service and go into the Gulf War and be assigned to the 98th General Hospital in Germany, in Nuremberg.
You developed through all of that experience an expertise, if you will, in PTSD and military psychiatry. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And somewhere along the line, later in your life and years, you said, hey, I want to get off the sidelines. I actually want to join up and serve. Talk to us about that process at what some might say is an advanced age.
Well, for decades, I had witnessed the profound impact of war upon veterans and active duty, visible and invisible scars. Only I was dealing primarily with the invisible scars, although we know that certainly psychiatric problems can lead to also somatic problems or other disorders, medical disorders. It's all integrated, the mind and body. But after listening to these soldiers, these service members, soldiers, airmen, all of the different branches of the service, and hearing the problems of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress that they were dealing with, I felt like there was something that I had to do to fill this void that I had. Not having ever joined that Sanctus Omnis group of people known as the Battle Buddy, I felt that fraternity was something that I had to become a part of. I just had to become a part of it before I died. And so this just gnawed at me like a discomfort. It chased me through most of my career. Until at age 63, I dove in. And in spite of the fact that, having waited 3 years after my physical examination for the military to give me a pass for my age, I had developed a heart condition. I had base rate of 43, and I was skipping beats about 3.5 seconds between beats. I was very marginal to go into any kind of basic exercise of training. But I said, if this kills me, okay, but I'm going to do it, even though my life's at stake.
Well, this is an amazing part of this story, is a guy who's 60 years old, professional, accomplished, has done so much, still has this burning desire of saying, hey, I want to serve. And really the name of your book that we're talking about is The Ageless Call to Serve, Rethinking Military Service for a Changing World. And you go in, as you say, it takes them 3 years. You're 63 when you go into basic training. The average age is probably down in the 20s. Talk to us about the physicalness of this.
I was a bunch of the grandchildren. They were like, I was like on another planet, so green in so many ways. It was, I had no real reorientation. And so getting down there, I remember meeting one of the enlisted coming in, and she said, well, where were you having our meetup? And I said, I don't know. I'm trying to find it myself, the building. And she said, well, I said, what do you do in the military? And she says, well, She says, well, I pass gas. And what she meant was she's an anesthetic.
Right, yeah.
And I'm thinking, whoa, they got some new nomenclature. I'm going to have to really, bone up here to find out what this culture is all about.
Well, it is an interesting culture to be in the military, and certainly most of us do it at a younger age. But you got yourself through basic, and this is 2003, the Iraq War started. There's a huge shortage of military doctors. That's probably why the standards on age got relaxed in your instance. And I know some other doctors who went in around that time, again, at a more advanced age, because they have the specialty and the services that are needed. But I found your book interesting because you tell us a lot about some history I wasn't paying any attention to, I guess, on the age of those who fight or those who get drafted. In the Civil War, the draft was up to 45 in age. In World War II, it was up to 35 in age. In Britain, in World War II, they had a home guard that if you were between 40 and 70 years, you can serve. And even today, apparently in the Russian army in the Ukraine war, if you're up to 70, they still may pull you in. So the American model, which is just focused on youth, is not necessarily used all around the world, is it?
Not at all. It isn't at all, and it's been very inflexible. I mean, for over a century, we have not changed the limits or the age restrictions in the military, the upper or lower. That is, I mean, okay. The last 2 years, I think the Navy changed the upper limits of enlistment for those that were 39 to move that to 41. But other than that, I mean, there has been virtually nothing done, and I don't think that there's any mandate out there by the upper echelon to even give serious thought to this.
Well, let's admit, young recruits have to be a whole lot more malleable than an old crusty guy like you, who's been around the world before and said, I don't know if this makes sense. But the reason this is important, this age issue is important, is what you write about in the book, too, on how, and I'd like you to expand on this, how younger recruits, younger enlisted folks are more likely to find themselves exposed to and suffering from PTSD in the long term. I found this discussion on age really interesting. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, well, the recent studies have come out by people like the researcher Doran and his associates have discovered that if you send a person into a war zone, into combat, under age 25, that person has way more than twice the risk of developing post-traumatic stress disorder, as those are 25 and older. The prefrontal cortex of young people is not mature until around age 25. But, you know, the recruitment objectives are, you know, to go and recruit these young men or women, and to have them be the bulwark for the grunt work in the line of fire. Now, you know, why are they so attractive? Well, because they believe they have this virtual vitality, which they have a lot of, and they also have naivety. And then the other element is fearlessness. They have fearlessness. So they will take an order even though they know that this order by the commander is going to result in total annihilation. They will still follow that order.
Well, and our young folks don't have the same level of responsibility at home, maybe. Maybe they don't have a family yet, or a wife, or a mortgage, or a spouse and kids. I mean, it's a whole different way of thinking when you're unburdened by all of that than somebody who's 60 years old and says, okay, I've paid off the house, I've paid off the bills, but I got these other responsibilities. It's very interesting to think about, should you do something different on the age of combatants, because this is a long-term implication. If I'm sending young folks in less than 25 years of age, and I'm increasing their likelihood of PTSD, on the back end, the nation has to pay for those folks for their health care, their treatment, their disability when they get out, over on the VA side. Not on the DOD side. I'm taking those young guys in. But if you're looking at the total cost of this, and this is probably what you saw when you worked at the VA, is, hey, these guys come out and they've got this problem for a long time.
Absolutely. The chronicity is what you really worry about. It's the 1/3 that never get really much better. And I dealt with so much of this over the years, and of how this leaves such scars that cannot be healed, and they suffer, the rest of their life. And then what we've seen is that the children of those with PTSD, of how this affects them. There was some program here not long ago that was addressing this, and had several fathers and children together and talking about the impact that PTSD has left on the lives, and how the children tried to, in some way, be a healing force, but not knowing how to do it, but wanting to care for the father that was dealt this horrible disease. And it created lots of anxiety, even some suicidal thoughts.
Well, there's a good point I want to jump off from, because again, there's this long-term, the book talks about we really should rethink this strategy a little bit. And an area where you make some interesting observations is the recruitment or enlistment screening that is or isn't done for things like suicide and generational trauma. Can you talk a little bit about that so people can get a thought of what your ideas are here?
Well, I've been on the other end of this course, dealing with those that probably should have never come into the military in the beginning. And the front loading, I call it the front loading, where you have a history of trauma, you have a history of abuse. And I mean, some people are able to overcome that, but not all. I think there should be a psychological test. We have a pretty good arsenal of psychological tests that can be given to detect those that are really on the marginal line of survival as far as psychological survival in the military, and those that aren't. And I just don't think enough attention is given to that. The pressures are really pretty heavy on the recruiter. And he's obligated, in order to keep his promotion moving forward and his pension, to get that quota met every month. He has mandates. And I think that there have been a lot of misgivings about not wanting to delve into the history further, not willing to want to get good screening techniques in order to not allow some of these that really don't have the resilience, they don't have the capabilities to adapt to this kind of stress. Now, there are some of these young people that go in the military that they could be salvaged if there was a mentor that they could identify with, a sergeant perhaps, that they could identify with, that would that would, give attention to help reinforce the right positive attitude and emotions towards stress in dealing with stress. But they don't have time for this. They really don't. And it's very rare you find some exceptional sergeant or supervised position of a person that's going to take that kind of care and responsibility and time. So I think screening is very valuable, very important. It would certainly spare a great number of these young people from disappointment, from failure, and inability to adapt and continue to fulfill their obligation in the military. The burdensome problems of this are great when you consider the resource that has to be mustered in order to take care of those that now have decompensated, and their psychiatric condition is such that they require a great deal amount of care and intense work.
Yeah, you can really see that
stabilized.
Yeah, you can see that tension, right? The tension between the recruiting needs, but in the long-term tension then of there's going to be a problem here that's going to take years and years of treatment because this person was maybe a little more susceptible. Maybe they had generational trauma, their age. There really is sort of that tension.
Susceptibility that increases the chances of PTSD. We know that, especially those that are abused. Studies bring out this in terms of that age group that is most susceptible to PTSD when they are in a war zone, when they're in combat. That given those facts of their development and not having the resilience, the percentage for PTSD goes up to 97% for those individuals.
It's just, it's really amazing, and it gets you back to where you have to really think about this. Better psychological screening tools would be so important. But you also talk about a concept that I want to get some of your thoughts on, and that is resiliency. Talk to us about what resiliency is and how the military could do a better job at helping it exist in its service members.
Well, I think resiliency, if the military had some preparatory program before basic training ever starts, and let's say it's 2 weeks, I would say at least 2 weeks minimum, of how to adapt to stress and how to approach stressful events, issues in your life that you're going to be confronted with in your service, in your duty assignments for the military. Techniques. I mean, in this orientation, what you need is role models. You need some good, resilient role models to give them the kind of mental approach to dealing with stresses and perceiving those not as problems but as challenges. And that's a whole different mental shift when you look at a stress point and an issue that you have to confront as a challenge rather than as a problem. But the people that really have resilience, that's exactly what they do. They perceive those, they say, bring it on. I'm here to resolve these things. I'm here to grow from this. And I think that's the approach has to be for all, I think, going into the military, for all of these young people we're talking about 18, 19. I'm not opposing for the military to not take 18, 19-year-olds into service. It's just, I think it's a flawed concept.
Well, we ought to prepare them. We ought to prepare them right? We ought to
put them into the line of fire at that age. Now, 21 older. I don't know what the magic age is. That would be the really prime age, the appropriate age to go into a war zone in combat. I don't know if I'm not capable of, prophetically saying what that is, except that I think that age group, just based on the history, you look at Vietnam, you look at, what was the average age of a combat soldier in Vietnam? 18, 19, that's what it was.
Right.
They come back, there's 30% of them all with PTSD. 20 years later, there's 15% of that group, that's half of them, that have still PTSD and they'll have it the rest of their life. I think that, we really have to look at that clearly and say, what can we do to make any kind of adjustments here for mental health of our precious service members?
We're talking to Dr. Lanny Snodgrass, who is a retired Army lieutenant colonel, served in the early 2000s, and it's his observations, his experiences, his expertise that's rolled into this book called The Ageless Call to Serve, Rethinking a Military Service for a Changing World. This is put out by Casemate Publishers. It's really a fascinating book talking about some issues you don't normally think about. And what I liked about it is you offered up fixes. We've talked about a number of them. But in those fixes is the recognition that in today's environment where there is telehealth and computers do so much, our professionals there certainly is a role for older professionals, those with experience and mastery, to join and serve. They don't have to be the frontline combat troops, but you offer up a number of fixes that I think are very interesting.
Well, the comparative model for that is the VA. When you look at the 60-year-olds that come in and work at the VA, they've retired from their practice. They've been in practice for, goodness knows, at least 30 years. They have all these skills and everything to offer. Military won't take them, but the VA will take them. And they've proven to be some excellent resource for the medical needs of the veterans. The military could use them on an active duty basis. I mean, we have, just like you mentioned, telemedicine. Oh my goodness, we've had an explosion of telemedicine during the pandemic, and it now has been accepted in many areas and disciplines and in industry and medicine to continue onward because it's been very effective. I mean, you take a radiologist; he can read these films anywhere he wants in the world. And be as effective as if he were there in person reading them and sending the data and results and so forth.
Well, as your subtitle says, it's a changing world. We're talking to, and we appreciate the time that Dr. Lanny Snodgrass, Lieutenant Colonel, retired out of the U.S. Army, gave to us today to talk about his book, The Ageless Call to Serve. Lanny, first off, I'm glad you got a sense, you got the opportunity to quench that thirst that you had to serve, even if you had to wait till you were 63 to do it. But I think it also gave you some unique perspective and insights, and they're certainly captured in the book.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to say that I would do it all over again. If this opportunity ever occurred, it's not something that I regret. In any sense, I regret, never. It was a wonderful opportunity for me, and I grew from it, and I feel that I have been of help, and it's been a life-changing experience for me. Much of what I've written in the book is about what came out of that experience.
Well, we really appreciate your time today. Thanks, Lanny.
Well, thank you. appreciate the opportunity here. It's been an honor.
I want to sneak in a little bit of an interview that you can find on Veterans Radio's podcast. I did this with the U.S. Chamber President, Eric Eversole. Interesting what they're doing, and we've only got a time to give you a little bit of it, but I think it's worth whetting your appetite. So you go to our podcast at veteransradio.org or any of your normal podcast programs from YouTube to iTunes to anything out there. We feed it through rss.com. That's our feed. So listen in. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Eric Eversole, who is president of Hiring Our Heroes, part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Eric is also a Navy vet. Eric, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be on your show.
Well, we're going to come back and talk a little bit about how a kid who started in the Indiana Air National Guard ended up as a captain in the Navy's Judge Advocate General Corps when he retired. But we'll come back to that. There's an interesting story there, I suspect. But let's start out with what is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce? What is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation? And that'll get us to the program Hiring Our Heroes.
Well, that's great, Jim. You know, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest business association. Each and every day, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce fights for business interests, both at the national level as well as the state level. And they're quite honestly, fighting the hard fights when it comes to legal reform, when it comes to, legislation that helps propel businesses across the country. And within the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, there is its foundation, which does a lot of the charitable work for businesses. They're very active in doing things like relief after disasters. So they're very active in North Carolina right now. But they also have Hiring Our Heroes, which is this veteran employment program.
And when did the foundation start Hiring Our Heroes?
Well, it was created back in 2011 when there was a national crisis in veteran unemployment at the time. As you may recall, back after the Great Recession in the 2011 timeframe, we had a lot of young men coming back from war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were facing a tough job market for veterans under the age of 25 back in 2011. And this is really hard to believe, but 2011, just a little over 13 years ago, 30% unemployment for veterans under the age of 25. And so the chamber, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, created Hiring Our Heroes as a national grassroots organization to raise awareness of the challenges that our veterans were facing, and to importantly leverage all the state and local chambers to do hiring events in local communities where unemployed veterans were trying to find employment and connect them with companies that would give them a chance. And so that's really how we were created. It was back in 2011, March of 2011, and it was really in response to that crisis.
Well, and part of this is transitioning for active duty members back into civilian world is difficult because in part they don't have that network. If they've spent 4 years or 8 or 12 out in military service, during that same period of time, their peers were developing employer-employee networks moving around from job to job, and that just doesn't exist, making it very difficult for transitioning members to get on their first try at the job they want, and they often end up underemployed or underutilizing their skills.
Yeah, Jim, it's a great point, and it's a complicated challenge that our service members face, and for us, once we tackled what was at the time veteran unemployment, we really made a strategic shift to attack the source of the problem that veterans were facing, and that was that transition. How do we, to your point, build the networks that service members can connect with companies while they're still on active duty? Because what we saw was transitioning service members didn't necessarily have the right networks, but they also didn't have the right skill sets, nor did they have, the kind of the broader job market landscape to understand what economic opportunity looked like. So back in 2014, we really shifted our focus to the active duty military community, so both transitioning service members and military spouses. And we really focused on how do we help them understand the opportunities that exist for them. How do we connect them with companies? How do we help give them the skill sets and the resources to be successful?
As I said, that's just a snippet of this interview. You might want to go listen to it entirely on whatever your podcast platform is, or go to U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation and search for Hiring Our Heroes. They'll give you some more information. One of the things we try to do here, and I think we're pretty successful, is bringing you information about the veteran space that you might not hear about anywhere else. And I think these are good examples of interviews where we've been able to do that. We hope you've enjoyed it. We know it's a unique kind of topic, but it's an important topic. That 1% who serve protect all of us. And we on Veterans Radio want to honor that service and tell those stories and provide information that will be helpful to veterans as they go about their life and transition, or for even friends and family who maybe have kids who are thinking about going into service and, hey, what can I expect afterwards, or what kind of support exists? What things should I know about? So, again, thanks to all of our sponsors. We really appreciate NVBDC.org, PuroClean, and Legal Help for Veterans to bring us on the air. And next week, Dale will be back with some interesting stories. And until then, you are dismissed.